Hello. Before we start today's episode, if you would like a condensed version of what I'm talking about in this podcast, go ahead and subscribe to the Perfectionist Guide. You can read the entire thing in 3 minutes or less. To access this, go to CourtneyLoveGavin.com/newsletter. Are you a bit of a perfectionist? Type A, hyper performer? Then you know
what it is like when your perfectionism is a constant god-awful companion.
But it doesn't have to be. If you are ready to burn bright instead of burning out, to lead without losing yourself, and to enjoy the life you have worked so hard to create, then keep listening. I'm your host, America's leader on rewiring perfectionism, CLG, and this is Perfectionism Rewired, the podcast. Welcome to Perfectionism Rewired. Today, we are talking about the energy and assertion to turn your mistakes into advantages and accept mistakes as part of your growth. We're not doing this abstractly. We're doing this with CLG, yours truly, as the perfectionist that has made a mistake very publicly on the podcast. And instead of recording it in hindsight, I am recording this to you in real time. A new skill when I rewired my perfectionism was I honor my plans, because there was a time where, before I started my podcast, which was over 3 years ago, there were about 4 years where I didn't start my podcast. Okay, I did start a podcast. I did not publish a podcast. I did a naming convention for 6 months. I would make all these plans, but I wouldn't follow through on them. It was self-sabotage for me to go off plan. And so when this mistake came up that I'm going to tell you about, when I talk about perfectionism is very nuanced and it's context dependent, sometimes it is self-sabotage to change gears and to go off plan. And sometimes it's self-sabotage to be rigid and inflexible. What I find really helpful, especially as a perfectionist, is when people that I admire talk about their experience candidly in real time and bring me along on the journey with them. When they are vulnerable in that way, I am just more attracted to them, not in a romantic way, but in a yeah, you're my people. I trust you more now. And so I am bringing you along for this journey. Okay, so for a little bit of context, what happened yesterday, I have 3 podcast episodes recorded that are part of a podcast series on making mistakes, getting it wrong, and rejection sensitivity, what that looks like for perfectionists. Yes, I have a whole new term for it, and it is it's going to wow the pants off of you. Perfectionist crippling pants. One of my favorite quotes is pants, you mean leg prisons? So this is the same thing. Your mistake prisons will be right off of you. And what I did yesterday is I put up the podcast without listening to it first, and it's the wrong podcast. So the podcast that you listen to, which yes, is about mistakes, is one that comes later on in this series. I also know that the way that I ended the last podcast was I told you that, tomorrow's it's going to be really fun. If you thought the worry window was fun, I'm going to share with you some really cool tools, which yes, I have all these cool tools in an episode ready to go for you, but we barely skimmed the surface on rejection sensitivity when it comes to mistakes, getting it wrong, and what that looks like from an introspective, all of this goodness behind it. Today, I had a client tell me, when is your podcast episode dropping today? I'm really excited about this tool. And I was thinking to myself, how did you know that? I was like, that's so weird. I haven't told anyone about this yet. And they're like, oh no, the podcast that you put out on Tuesday, you said that there was this thing that's coming out. And I was like, oh, so I realized my mistake. There was a lot of all or nothing thinking going on in my head. What I could do is I could just take down the episode that several thousand people have already downloaded and listened to. And then I was like, no, but you made a plan. And this is you switching gears on your plan. And then I also thought, I was like, well, what if I just edit the podcasts I've already done. I was having all this all or nothing thinking that the series is ruined. I messed up. And then I was like, how effing ironic is it that I made a mistake when I'm talking about making mistakes? My brain was telling me a lot of different things about take the episode down and put the first one in the series up. And it's also why having a coach who understands how to navigate the complexities of perfectionism, like that becomes paramount for you. Any comprehensive support that you invest in for your perfectionism or perfectionistic tendencies, they ought to address the intricacies of perfectionism and mistake sensitivity. I realized that I made the mistake. Then I didn't let that distract. I have a whole process that I do before I get on and coach one-on-one clients inside of Perfectionism Optimized and the Perfectionism Rewired Accelerator. So like I emptied out, did my own practices so that like that wasn't on my mind at all. And then I showed up for the rest of my coaching of clients. Then once I wrapped that at like 5 p.m., I was thinking to myself, what am I going to do? I thought it was a little cliche, like all the judgment came up. I could take it down, but I already have a lot of people listening to it. Integrity is the number one value that we have here at Perfectionism Rewired. If you go on my website, if you go to like our values, it's all about integrity. And that was part of the conflict. I said the next episode was going to be super fun and have this exercise. And that was because the episode you listen to is supposed to come later on in the series. I looked at alternatives of what I could do, which I just talked to you about. And I think that so often we can be in this place where we have self-awareness around our perfectionistic tendencies, where it can feel like, yeah, but I can see both sides, right? Like I could see both sides. When I asked myself, how could what happened actually be even better? What I wrote down in my self-coaching notebook is by me making this mistake and bringing it to all of you very, very publicly, I am increasing my resilience, my self-efficacy, my self-trust, my perseverance, my confidence, my badassery, my focus, and my dedication. By the way, all of that took some like thought. This is why I'm advocate for paper thinking, because it's like flushing the toilet in your head. You flush away the turds. The best option for me is to make a decision to back myself. And from that point on, I do not allow myself to be in the should I, shouldn't I, dish rag, wishy-washy kind of energy. What I see happen with too many perfectionists is that they make a mistake and then either they're paralyzed from it, they don't want to look at it. You think that there is this one right decision out there and you just have to figure out which one it is. And then you end up deciding nothing at all. I could have easily edited episodes, swapped it out, put it in order, hoped no one noticed. What I ask myself is, which decision is a decision towards courage? Where's my growth? And I also asked myself, what feels the most uncomfortable? And what I see so many of you do is when you make a mistake or things don't go the way that you envisioned, you get busy finding excuses and then constructing alibis for your, air quotes here, failures. Everything is a process of being and becoming. There is no final achievement. Like, who am I becoming in this process? And who am I being while I make the mistakes? When you think about your perfectionism overall and your perfectionistic tendencies, you're always trying to either feel better about something or you're trying to feel less. Because like otherwise, if you were just okay with, you know what, I can feel inadequate because I'm a strong human. If we all had that perspective, we would never, my boss doesn't like the presentation that I did. So you know what I'm going to do? You know what'll solve it? I'm going to stay up all night and I'm going to rework this presentation that I'm giving at the all hands. Like that equation doesn't equal solving the real problem. Just like with me, switching out the podcast episodes or trying to like contort myself in some different way wasn't solving the real problem. If I had decided to not give you this episode and to just switch them out or to piecemeal Frankenstein the episodes, honestly, I don't even know what that would have looked like because I'm not doing it. So I don't even let my mind go down that road. But when you do that, when you try and make it so that you don't feel a certain way, because believe me, part of me is mortified that like I made such a careless mistake. I allow myself to have both feelings. I don't gaslight myself and I'm like, this is the best thing ever. I'm just more moving forward with what happened. When you don't know how to be your strongest advocate on the inside, when you don't know how to talk to yourself in a way that feels comforting and gives you peace and calming in the moments, while, these other parts of you, I call mine old shitty, like the gremlins, when they're bitter, frustrated, disappointed, and they are stressed the F out. When you start backing out of making it so that you appear externally flawless at all times and never make a mistake, never make a public mistake, when you stop doing that, you get the opportunity to hear how you talk to yourself. You get the opportunity to listen for what's really going on inside of you. Only when you know all of that do you actually know where your best decision is. That is why inside of Perfectionism Optimized, you can start forming the relationship you want with yourself and talk to yourself in a generative and empowering way. I'll have people come to me and they're like, I'm working with this other person, but these things aren't clicking. And it's because we forget so often mistakes are a part of the process. I never quit anymore. I don't quit on myself anymore. If you never quit, it means that no mistake ever equals failing. And what a relief that is. No mistake ever equals quitting. It just means that it's time to buckle up, double down, and learn. When you make a mistake, like I did, it used to be an opportunity for me to throat punch myself. And I told myself that today, and I'm like, look, it's your choice. I no longer throat punch myself anymore. I have raised my internal standard. I just like, homie, don't play that. When you start doing this, you probably might not have built up the capacity to make mistakes. I want you to think about it like you have been taking elevators and escalators and just been on moving sidewalks your whole life. And there are like the Santa Monica steps, these long things that seem like they go on forever of stairs for you to climb. You can't jog up all of them without you need to take a break. You've never done stairs before. So of course you don't have the capacity yet to make mistakes, but the way that you build the capacity is you make them. You no longer make them mean that there's something wrong with you. You make it a part of the process and you do like what I did. You make it so that a mistake means that you must be doing it right. This is what else I wrote in my notebook. I asked myself the question, how does this mistake must mean that I'm doing it right? I was able to feed that part of my perfectionist brain that loves being right. And when it comes over and it's like, oh my goodness, this wasn't what I planned, then CLG steps in. And I'm like, guess what? You had a plan. Guess what? You have a podcast. Guess what? You have thousands of perfectionists all over the world who listen to each episode. The way that you're able to flip it like I did and really make it so that you're able to see is you're going to have to make a mistake. The way that I got here was that I made mistakes and I had a lot of really crappy thoughts about myself. That was a reflex. But you know what? I did it. When I say I did it, meaning I lived through that process. I showed myself who was stronger. My perfectionism didn't control me. I controlled it. One of your biggest problems is that you beat yourself up. And now that you know it's a problem, you don't get to do that anymore. We don't do that anymore. We don't throat punch ourselves anymore. We're over that part. We're moving on. You're moving on. And you start making decisions and moves rather than passively, I'm going to tell you, a big passive action. I used to do this. Well, I'm making the plans and I keep making mistakes and I beat myself up. And then you spin out. You end up mindlessly going from task to task instead of gaining the skills and sharpening your abilities through being able to make a mistake and still move forward, especially publicly. That is quite a feat. Sitting around beating yourself up, it's so tired. It's not even vintage cute. Beating yourself up, as Hillary Duff would say, it's so yesterday. Instead, what you could be doing is assessing the mistake, retooling, and getting back into the game. That is progress in action, and that is allowing yourself the ability to let it click. Some of the most successful people in the world, we are also our own worst critics. But if there is a flame inside you that will keep pushing you towards these ideals of magnificence and bringing them into reality, maybe it's best to rewire it so it doesn't become a destructive trait that is burning you out. Instead, make it so that you can burn bright. And when you make mistakes, mistakes don't make you. The minute that you rewire your perfectionism and you stop giving power to the past with all of its mistakes, it loses its power over you and you become the one in charge. Present is real and your opportunities are now. And I don't mean some vague moment next week or next month. No, today, like this minute, like you listening must see the opportunities. They must be real for you. But the catch is that they don't seem real if your perspective is blocked by past mistakes, if you are catastrophizing, if you are living in prison. And what I'm inviting you to do is to trade the prison for liberation. Like calmly and confidently making mistakes is a skill and it improves with practice. That's why I'm so good at it. That's why I've mastered it, which means that you too can get skilled. If you want those skills and you want to see all the wonderful ways that I can help you, go to CourtneyLoveGavin.com/services. And we will be back tomorrow with the first in a multi-episode series about mistakes. Listen up. Taking charge of your perfectionism is so much easier than you have been led to believe. Whether you want to stop playing out worst case scenarios in your head or be joyfully present, ambitious again, you don't need more rigid rules, guesswork, or hard work in perfectionism recovery. You need a framework that helps you understand and, most importantly, rewire your perfectionistic habits from the inside out. It starts with my 6-week Perfectionism Rewired Accelerator. Besides the obvious mental health and wellness benefits, rewiring your perfectionism is the fastest way to figure out what's really underneath your perfectionistic patterns. This radically different, proven, proprietary approach helps you succeed by dropping the contempt and judgment that blocks change. Discover how to trust yourself, take control of your world, and feel truly empowered to own your perfectionism instead of being owned by it. Head on over to CourtneyLoveGavin.com/accelerator and start your transformation today.